You know, I never thought I'd be that guy. The one who gets blindsided by betrayal. Not me. I was Jake Harper. Steady. Reliable. The kind of man who folded his laundry the minute it came out of the dryer and actually used the grill brush after making burgers. I had a routine. I had a life. I had Emily. We'd been married for 6 years. I met her at a friend's wedding, of all places. She was sitting alone, rolling her eyes at the maid of honor's speech, and I was immediately hooked. Sharp tongue, smart mind, that kind of quiet beauty that sneaks up on you. We clicked fast. Moved in together within 8 months. Married within 2 years. Then there was Adam. My best friend since 8th grade gym class, where we both nearly passed out during the mile run. We bonded over mutual asthma and a shared love of sarcasm. He was like the brother I never had. Hell, he was the best man at my wedding. Knew all my stories. Knew me. Emily and Adam, they got along great. I thought I hit the jackpot. My wife and my best friend actually liked each other. They'd crack jokes at my expense and gang up on me during game nights. I used to laugh about it. Looking back, man, I should have seen it sooner. Life was comfortable. That dangerous kind of comfortable where you stop paying attention. Emily worked in HR at the same company I did. We kept things professional at work, never did the whole cutesy couple in the office thing. Adam was a manager in sales. He had that kind of charisma that made you trust him before you even knew his last name. People loved him. I did too. Until I didn't. Now, the night it happened, it wasn't some big, dramatic confrontation. No yelling. No punching holes in the drywall. It was quiet. Too quiet, honestly. I had left my phone charger at work. Simple as that. I was halfway through dinner when I realized it. And being the kind of guy who hates waking up to 3% battery, I drove back to the office around 8:30 p.m. It was Friday. The building should have been empty. But when I walked in, the lights were still on in the HR lounge, a glass-walled corner room with a couch and a kitchenette. I figured maybe someone forgot to lock up. As I turned the corner, there they were. Emily, Adam, locked in a kiss. And not the kind of kiss you give your old friend's wife in some misunderstood moment. No, this was real. Intentional. Familiar. I froze. I didn't make a sound. I don't even think I breathed. It felt like the air had been vacuumed out of the room. Like I was watching a scene from someone else's life. I stepped back, slowly, and left before they saw me. Got in my car. Sat there, staring at the steering wheel like it held the answers. I didn't cry. Not then. The tears came later, quietly, alone in the garage, after the engine had cooled. What hit me first wasn't anger. It was disbelief. Like, this has to be a mistake. Maybe it was a goodbye kiss? A weird accident. But deep down I knew. You know when something's off. You feel it in your bones before your brain is ready to admit it. That night, I didn't sleep. My heart pounded like it was trying to outrun the truth. I laid next to her. Her, the woman I had promised forever to, and pretended everything was fine. I even kissed her goodnight. I hated myself for it. But I had a plan. See, I wasn't going to scream and shout. I wasn't going to be the guy who lost his mind and made a scene. I was going to do what I do best. Observe, gather facts, and play the long game. Because if they thought I was stupid, they were about to find out just how smart I could be. And that's how it started. With one quiet kiss that broke my world apart. And a man who refused to crumble. The morning after I saw them, I made pancakes. I stood there flipping blueberry pancakes for the woman who had kissed my best friend less than 12 hours earlier. She walked in wearing one of my old t-shirts, smiled like everything was normal, and kissed me on the cheek. I smiled back. My stomach turned. You hear about people snapping when they find out they've been cheated on, shouting, throwing things, walking out. But for me, it was the opposite. I went quiet. Too quiet. Like I had fallen into the eye of a storm I didn't even know I was standing in. I told her I had a rough night. Said I didn't sleep well. Blamed it on stress at work. She nodded, sympathetic. You've been working too hard, she said. You need to take care of yourself. I nearly laughed. That day at work, I watched them. From a distance. The glances. The smiles. The subtle way she'd linger at his desk. Things I'd never thought twice about before suddenly glowed red in my mind. It was like someone had turned on a black light, and I could finally see the stains. But I still said nothing. Because I needed more. A kiss could be dismissed. Brushed off. Explained away. I needed proof. Evidence. Undeniable facts that couldn't be gaslit or twisted. So I started paying attention. Real attention. First thing I did was buy a cheap burner phone. Not because I planned to call anyone. but because it had a decent camera and no connection to me. I stashed it in my car. The second thing I did was sign up for one of those online spyware packages. You know, the ones designed for parental controls. Yeah, those. Only instead of watching a kid's screen time, I'd be tracking a grown woman's lies. Now don't get me wrong, I didn't like doing this. Felt slimy. But trust me, betrayal changes your moral compass real quick. When someone rewrites the rules without telling you, you either adapt or get played. So I started small. I checked our shared laptop when she left for yoga. She wasn't dumb, cleared her browser history often, but she forgot about downloads. I found 2 PDFs of hotel reservations from the past month. One of them was from a Tuesday. She claimed to have had a girls' night. I even remember offering to pick her up afterward. She declined. Adam had been out of town for meetings that same day. Right. I also found a second phone charger in her gym bag. Nothing scandalous, but strange. She'd always been obsessive about leaving her charger at home. Said it was her one tether to real life. Her words. That tether had apparently snapped. Still, none of this was concrete. Suspicious, yes, but not explosive. So I got tactical. One Friday morning, I told her I had a training seminar in another city and would be staying overnight. In reality, I booked a room at a cheap motel across town and stayed local. I even parked my car in a friend's garage just to keep it off the radar. That night, I watched. Emily had no idea I was nearby. She thought I was gone. I had asked her to water the plants while I was away. She agreed, even kissed me goodbye like she meant it. But around 8:47 p.m., I saw her on the security cam I'd installed by the back door the day before. She wasn't alone. Adam was with her. They came in laughing. She poured wine. He kissed her like he'd done it 100 times. Maybe he had. They didn't go upstairs. No, they stayed on the couch. My couch. The one I'd picked out. The one I fell asleep on after long workdays, watching documentaries she never liked. I watched the whole thing from a phone screen with the volume off, but it still made me sick. I didn't cry this time. No, I just saved the footage. Backed it up twice. One copy to the cloud. One to a USB stick I hid in the lining of my suitcase. Then I made a folder on my laptop. Named it Storm. Over the next 2 weeks, I added more. Screenshots of texts. Photos from that burner phone. Her car outside his house when she told me she was staying late for onboarding paperwork. A recording from the security camera where Adam called her babe as he left my driveway. Piece by piece, I built the case. And all the while, I played my part. The loving husband. The clueless best friend. I brought donuts into the office. Sat through meetings. Asked Adam about his weekend like I cared. I even took Emily out to dinner one night. She smiled across the table at me, holding my hand, telling me how lucky she felt to have someone who trusted her so much. You know that feeling when you realize someone's rehearsed their lines too well? Yeah, that. By then, I'd lost weight. Couldn't eat much. Slept maybe 4 hours a night, max. My hands started shaking sometimes, just holding a coffee cup. But I kept going. Because I knew something they didn't. I was done being the one in the dark. They thought they were sneaky. But I had something they didn't. Patience. And the will to wait until I could hit them both where it hurt the most. Not in the bedroom. Not in the heart. But at work. Where reputations lived and died by whispers. That's where I'd strike. But not yet. First, I needed one more thing. One final betrayal. And they were about to hand it to me on a silver platter. By the time the second Friday rolled around, I had everything short of a signed confession. And honestly, I didn't think I'd need one. Still, I waited. Because I wanted them to give it to me. To hand me their betrayal like a gift. All tied up in a pretty little bow of arrogance. And wouldn't you know it, they did. See, people like Adam and Emily, they get sloppy when they think they've gotten away with it. They mistake silence for stupidity. My silence. It wasn't weakness. It was rope. And they were busy wrapping it around their own necks. Let me back up. That week at work had been normal, unnervingly so. Emily kissed me goodbye each morning, sent her usual "don't forget lunch" texts, even made chilly Wednesday night, which she only did when she was feeling sentimental. Adam, meanwhile, asked if I wanted to catch the game Saturday. Just the guys, he said, clapping me on the back. I told him I'd think about it. They were testing the waters, seeing how much I knew, and I gave them nothing. Just nods and smiles and the occasional chuckle when they expected it. But I had other plans for Saturday. That morning, I left for the game. Told Emily I'd meet Adam and a couple guys at a bar near the stadium. Instead, I parked 2 blocks away from his place and waited. It didn't take long. Emily pulled up around 12:20. I filmed her car arriving. Watched her knock. Watched Adam open the door wearing a shirt I bought him 2 Christmases ago. They didn't even make it to the living room this time. I knew because, well, Adam's living room has big windows. They didn't close the curtains. That's when I stopped recording. Not because I couldn't stomach it. I could. By then, I was running on fumes and fury. No, I stopped because I had enough. I sat in my car for a while. Watched the video back just once. Saved it. Transferred it to the USB. Then I pulled out a folder I'd been putting together for weeks. Inside were timestamped photos, screenshots of texts, printouts of calendar overlaps, 2 videos, one last edition, the footage from that day. I named it, for your reference. And then I wrote the email. Subject line, clarification regarding conduct policy violations, Adam and Emily. It was direct, cold, professional, not emotional, just facts. I explained that I had gathered evidence of an ongoing inappropriate relationship between an HR representative and a direct manager, a clear conflict of interest and policy breach. I stated that documentation was attached, including timestamps and behavior logs that violated company ethics guidelines. I asked that the matter be reviewed immediately by the executive team and CC'd legal. The last line read, "This email is not intended to create drama, only to ensure our policies are upheld, regardless of title, tenure, or relationship." Then I attached the zip file, took a deep breath, and hit send to all employees. Yep, everyone. From the interns to the CEO. No emotion, no slander, just the truth, bare and undeniable. I sat back, closed my laptop, and waited. Now, I expected fallout. Maybe some gossip. A few stunned messages. What I didn't expect was just how fast the company moved. Within 2 hours, Emily was pulled from her office. Adam was escorted out of the building. By the end of the day, both their access cards had been disabled. HR had sent out a generic, ongoing investigation email, but everyone knew. You could feel it in the air, the shock, the whispers, the tension. And me? I walked into the break room, poured myself a coffee, and got a quiet nod from the IT guy I barely talked to. They all knew. They didn't say a word, but they knew. And the best part? I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't made a scene. I had just pressed send. Later that evening, Emily called. Twice. I didn't answer. Then Adam tried. Straight to voicemail. I went home, cooked dinner for myself, and opened a cold beer. I turned on the game. The same one Adam invited me to. I watched it alone. And for the first time in weeks, I breathed. No, I wasn't healed. Not yet. But I'd just taken the first real step toward peace and left behind the man who thought silence meant surrender. Spoiler alert, it never did. I didn't go home right away after sending the email. I sat in the office parking lot for about an hour, watching the sun dip behind the trees, turning the sky that kind of orange that always used to remind me of late summer barbecues and porch lights flicking on. Funny what betrayal does to a memory. Those sunsets don't hit the same anymore. My phone buzzed. Emily. Then again. Adam. Back to back to back, like a fire drill I never signed up for. I didn't answer. I just let it ring out, one sad song after another. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the porch light was on. Like she was waiting for me. I stepped inside and there she was, Emily. Sitting on the couch like a teenager waiting to get grounded. She stood up when she saw me. Jake. Her voice cracked before the sentence finished. I walked past her. Put my bag down. Took off my jacket. Calm. Like I was walking into any normal Tuesday evening. She tried again. I can explain. That's funny, I said, setting my keys on the table. I don't remember asking you to. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. I noticed the ring was off her finger. Maybe it had started to burn. You sent that email, she said softly. I did. You destroyed our lives. I looked at her then. Really looked at her. This woman I once adored. This woman I would have taken a bullet for. And in that moment, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger wearing her face. No, Emily, I said, voice low. You destroyed ours. I just told the truth. Silence. She sat down again, like her knees couldn't hold her anymore. I sat across from her, not beside her. That spot was gone now. She tried to speak, but I held up a hand. Don't. Emily. Firmer this time. Don't. You had a choice. You had 100 chances to stop this. And you didn't. So now, it's my turn. I pulled out a manila envelope from my bag and slid it across the coffee table. She stared at it like it might explode. What's this? Divorce papers. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. There's a copy of the prenup in there too. You remember that, right? The thing you insisted we didn't need. Good thing I listened to my gut for once. She didn't touch the envelope. You're not getting the house, I continued. You're not getting my retirement. You're not getting alimony. You'll get whatever's in your personal accounts and a clean break. That's more mercy than you gave me. Jake, please. Don't say you're sorry. She paused, blinked, swallowed hard. Why not? Because I know you're not sorry you did it, I said. You're just sorry you got caught. That one landed. I saw it in her eyes. And still, I didn't raise my voice. Not once. You cheated on me with the one person I trusted most, I said, almost to myself. You didn't just burn the bridge. You blew it up and salted the ground. And now you want me to help rebuild it. She reached for me, and I leaned back. Not out of anger. Just done. I loved you, Emily, I said quietly. But the woman I loved doesn't exist anymore. She cried. I didn't. I stood up, grabbed the other envelope from my bag and tossed it onto the table beside hers. This one's for Adam, I said. Thought I'd save you the trip. She looked up, eyes wide. What is it? His wife's contact info. I thought she might like to know what her husband's been up to on his lunch breaks. You're going to tell her? No. You are, I said. Or I will. Your choice. But the truth's not staying buried anymore. Emily broke then. Really broke. Not the performative kind. The real, gut-level collapse. She sobbed into her hands, saying things like, I didn't mean for this to happen, and it just got out of control. But you know what? I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel much of anything at all. And maybe that was the saddest part. Before I left the room, I looked back once more. You can stay here tonight, I said. But by noon tomorrow, I want your things gone. And don't worry, I already canceled your work email. HR confirmed you're terminated. Her face crumpled. And Emily? I added, hand on the doorknob. She looked up, hollow and trembling. Don't ever mistake my silence for forgiveness. Then I walked out. I got in the car, drove to my brother's place, slept on a futon that was probably older than our marriage, and slept through the night for the first time in weeks. There's something eerie about waking up in someone else's home when your life's just imploded. You don't know where the mugs are, your toothbrush is still in a Ziploc, and you stare at the ceiling wondering how you ended up here when just a week ago you were pouring coffee for the woman who said she'd love you forever. I was on my brother Matt's futon, still wearing the t-shirt from the night before. My neck hurt. My heart hurt more. But I woke up without the usual weight in my chest, no anxiety, no pretending. Just quiet. I didn't even miss Emily. Isn't that something? The morning after our conversation, I went back to the house around 11:45. Gave her time. When I pulled into the driveway and saw her car already gone, I stood there for a second. Not because I was sad, because she'd actually listened for once. I walked inside. The living room looked the same, but emptier. She'd taken the photos off the shelf. Not all, just the ones with her in them. Left behind the wedding portrait, though. The one where I was looking at her like she hung the moon. I took it down and threw it in the trash. No ceremony. Just facts. By the afternoon, I made good on my promise. I sent the envelope to Carla, Adam's wife. I kept it simple. Hi, Carla. I know this is hard to read, but I believe you deserve the truth. I'm sorry you have to find out this way. I've attached evidence that your husband has been having an affair with my now ex-wife, Emily. I hope you find peace, whatever path you take next. Jake. There were photos. Screenshots. Not graphic. I'm not cruel. Just enough to make it clear. You can't argue with time-stamped reality. She didn't respond that day, or the next. But when she finally did, it was just one sentence. Thank you for telling me what he never would have. And that was enough. Back at the office? Well, that was a different beast. They tried to play it cool. HR sent out some formal announcement thanking Emily and Adam for their contributions and wishing them the best in future endeavors. Classic corporate translation for they got caught and canned. But people talk, especially in open floor plan offices where whispers travel faster than Wi-Fi. Some folks looked at me like I was a walking tabloid headline. Others gave me quiet nods of solidarity. A few just avoided eye contact altogether, probably afraid they'd be next if they crossed me. Funny thing is, I didn't feel powerful. Just detached. Like I'd been running on fumes for so long, I couldn't tell if I was moving forward or just coasting on momentum. One afternoon, our CTO, Jeff, pulled me aside. "Hey, man," he said. "Just wanted to say, that was a hell of a thing you did. Brave." I shrugged. "Didn't feel brave." "Well," he said, pausing, "you got guts. And you reminded a lot of us what not to tolerate." I appreciated that. I really did. But I wasn't trying to be anyone's moral compass. I was just trying to clean the wreckage without setting fire to myself in the process. A couple days later, Matt, my brother, handed me a beer and said, "So, what now?" Good question. I didn't know yet. I'd filed for divorce. Started therapy. Changed all my passwords. Blocked Emily and Adam on everything. Even got the locks changed on the house. But what now? I wasn't the husband anymore. Wasn't the best friend. Wasn't even the quiet guy in the background at work. For the first time in years, I had no roles to play. Just Jake. That night, I sat outside on Matt's porch. It was cold, but I didn't mind. I watched my breath in the air and thought about who I was before all this. Before the marriage. Before the betrayal. Before the blind trust. I realized something. I missed me. Not me and Emily. Not me and Adam. Just me. And maybe, just maybe, this mess wasn't the end. Maybe it was the start of something better. Something mine. I used to think healing came with a soundtrack, some slow, inspirational piano music like in those movie montages where the guy gets a haircut, jogs through a sunrise, and suddenly becomes whole again. Yeah. No. Real healing? It's boring. It's sitting in your brother's guest room, staring at the same crack in the ceiling for 30 minutes because your brain's too tired to think but too wired to sleep. It's grocery shopping alone for the first time in years and realizing you don't know what kind of cereal you even like anymore because you always bought hers. It's waking up in the middle of the night and reaching for a body that's no longer there, and being okay with that. Slowly. Not all at once. Matt, bless him, never pushed. He just kept showing up. Beer in hand, questions in his eyes, but patience in his voice. "You okay?" He'd ask every few days. I always gave the same answer. "I'm getting there." And it wasn't a lie. I started running again. Nothing intense, just a few laps around the block. At first, I was winded halfway through. But something about putting one foot in front of the other, sweating out the anger, the anxiety, the memories, it helped. Funny how much mental clutter you can burn off with a jog and a decent playlist. About 2 weeks after the email bomb dropped, I finally went back to the house. Alone this time. Emily was long gone. Her things, too. The only trace she'd left behind was an empty closet, a faint scent of perfume on the sheets, and a single photo I guess she forgot, us, on our honeymoon in Maine. Laughing. Young. Stupid. I didn't throw it away. I put it in a box with a label that read, "Old Life." Taped it shut. Set it in the garage. Not out of sentiment, out of closure. That chapter's over. Doesn't mean it never happened. Just means I'm done rereading it. That night, I stayed in the house for the first time since everything. No distractions. No backup. Just me. It was quiet. A little too quiet. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I sat on the couch, alone, and started to write. Nothing fancy. Just a list. Things I gave up and want back. Cooking for fun, not just dinner duty. Playing guitar. Sunday mornings to myself. Trusting my gut. Laughing without suspicion. And then, a second list. Things I gave up and never want back. Walking on eggshells. Explaining my texts. Compromising for peace. Making excuses for other people's bad behavior. Being the only one trying. That list was longer. Felt better, too. Around that time, I started therapy. I know, that's not the cinematic moment some people expect. No dramatic breakdown. No tissues flying. Just a guy sitting in a chair, trying to untangle 6 years of self-sacrifice and wondering how he missed the warning signs. Dr. Lutz was a calm guy. Not the nod and hum type. More like a wise uncle who'd seen enough train wrecks to know when the tracks were bent. "What do you want, Jake?" he asked at the end of our first session. I shrugged. "Peace." "From her?" "No," I said. "From myself." He nodded. "Then we're in the right place." One thing nobody tells you about betrayal, it doesn't just mess with your heart. It scrambles your memory. Suddenly, every happy moment feels like a setup. Every laugh? A lie. Every hug? A trick. But here's the thing, they weren't all fake. She may have changed. He may have too. But not every smile was built on deceit. That kind of thinking poisons the whole past. And I'm not letting them take everything from me. Not my memories. not my kindness. Not me. One night, I ran into Carla, Adam's wife, at the store. We hadn't spoken since the email. She was in the produce section, looking at oranges. I almost turned and walked out, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't know what to say. She saw me before I could. "Jake," she said. "Hey." I nodded. "Carla." We stood there for a second. Two people who had their hearts hit by the same wrecking ball. Then she smiled, not a big one, but enough to show she was standing on her own feet. "I left him," she said simply. I figured. "How about you?" "Divorce in motion," I said. "House is mine. So is the dog." Which is weird, because we didn't have a dog, but my brother brought one over, and now I guess I'm a dog guy. She laughed. A real laugh. We stood there for a while and talked. Not about them, about us. About healing. About how good it feels to not have to check someone's phone when they go to the bathroom. About how silence can finally mean peace instead of distance. As I walked to my car, she called out, "Hey, Jake?" "Yeah, you did the right thing." For the first time in a long time, I believed it. You don't notice how heavy something's been until you finally put it down. Grief, guilt, bitterness, they're sneaky like that. They hitch a ride in your shoulders, your sleep, your smile. And then one day, you wake up, roll out of bed, and realize you're not carrying as much anymore. That happened to me on a Tuesday. I got up, made coffee, and for no real reason, started humming. Just a dumb little tune from an old sitcom I hadn't watched since college. But it came out of me, easy and natural. And I stood there, sipping coffee, barefoot on the kitchen tile, wondering, is this what it feels like to come back to life? Maybe it was. Work had settled down. The whispers faded. The glances stopped. Adam and Emily? Old news. The company had filled their spots like it always does. Life moves on even when it feels like yours has paused. People respected me more now. Not because I'd taken revenge, but because I hadn't lost myself in the process. I wasn't loud about what happened. I didn't gossip. I didn't spin it. I just kept showing up. And people noticed. I got offered a promotion, a step up, team lead. A couple folks said it was a pity bump. Maybe it was. But I earned it, and I took it. Not for validation, for the paycheck and the fresh start. That's what healing looks like sometimes. Not confetti and clapping. Just better hours and a corner desk. I also started doing something wild. I took myself out to dinner. Alone. No phone to distract me. No second chair to fill. Just me, a corner booth, a burger, and a beer. I'd watch people. Listen to the murmur of conversations I wasn't part of. And instead of feeling left out, I felt free. There's a peace in not waiting on someone who doesn't appreciate your time anymore. A few weeks later, Matt convinced me to go to a group cookout. Nothing formal. Just a handful of folks in his neighborhood, most of whom I didn't know. Fresh faces, he said. You could use some. He wasn't wrong. That's where I met Rachel. Not in a storybook way. No dramatic music. Just two people reaching for the same deviled egg and laughing because we both pretended we didn't want the last one. She had this calm energy. Like she didn't need the room to notice her. I appreciated that. We talked about dogs. Music. Our shared hatred for pineapple on pizza. And when she asked what I did for a living, I told her. When she asked about my relationship status, I told her that too. Divorced? She asked. Almost, I said. Paperwork's filed. Betrayal and all that. She didn't blink. Just nodded. That sucks. It did, I said. But I'm all right. Well, she said, smiling. You don't look like a guy who folded. I laughed. Not yet. Anyway, we didn't exchange numbers that day. No pressure. Just a really good conversation and a wave goodbye that didn't feel like an ending. I walked away feeling lighter. I didn't feel fixed. I wasn't suddenly whole, but I felt seen. And after months of being invisible in my own home, that was more than enough. That night, back at the house, I pulled out my old guitar. Fingers stiff, calluses gone. But I tuned it up, sat on the edge of the bed, and strummed through some old chords. Badly. Rusty didn't even begin to cover it. But I played anyway. And somewhere in the middle of a half-remembered verse, I laughed. Not the hollow kind I'd gotten good at. The real kind, the kind that vibrates in your chest like something waking up again. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was starting. It had been just over 2 months since the email. 2 months of therapy, clean breakfasts, dog walks, and learning how to sleep on only one side of the bed. And just when I'd started to believe life might finally go a few days without handing me an emotional sucker punch, the universe said, let's stir the pot. It started with a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A letter. The kind people used to send before we all had the internet stitched into our palms. It showed up on a Thursday. No return address. Just my name on the front, in handwriting I didn't recognize. I opened it on the porch, coffee in hand, dog at my feet. It was from Adam. Of course it was. The handwriting, I should have known. All slanted and precise, like the guy was trying too hard to be taken seriously. The letter was long. Too long. 3 pages of half apologies and over-explanations. The classic, "I didn't mean for this to happen" line came up twice. And then the kicker. "I miss our friendship more than anything. You were my brother. I hope someday you can forgive me." I folded the letter in half, then in half again. Then I fed it to the fire pit. No drama. Just quiet flames and a deep breath. Forgive him? Sure. Eventually. But not so he could feel better. So I could move on lighter. There's a difference. And wouldn't you know it, a week later, Emily showed up. Not a letter this time. She showed up in person. I was walking out of the grocery store, arms full of paper bags and questionable decisions. Yes, I bought Pop-Tarts and sparkling water. Healing is weird. And there she was, standing by her car. Nervous. Too put together. Her smile was small and sad. "Hey, Jake." I didn't say anything. Just raised an eyebrow and waited. "I didn't mean to ambush you," she said. I've been thinking about everything." I set the bags down in the trunk and closed it slowly. "You've had 2 months to think." "I know. And I'm not here to make excuses. I just wanted to apologize. For real." I looked at her, the same face I once memorized. Now, I could barely remember what I ever saw when I looked at it. "I already forgave you," I said. She blinked. "Wait, you did?" "Yep," I nodded. "But that doesn't mean I want you back. Or that we're friends. It just means I'm not going to carry what you did anymore." She went quiet. "I lost myself in that marriage," I added. "Not because of you. That was on me. I let things slide. I stopped asking for what I needed. But you? You didn't just leave, you burned the house down while I was still inside." Tears welled up. I didn't flinch. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, voice cracking. "I just want you to know. I still love you." I exhaled. That's not mine to carry anymore either. Then I got in my car and drove off. And just like that, her chapter closed. Not with a bang. With a boundary. That night, I went home, poured a drink, and sat on the back porch with the dog. I watched the wind rustle the trees and thought about how much noise I used to need to feel okay. TV, music, conversations, distractions. Now, silence felt like home. Later, I picked up my phone. Thought about texting Rachel. Just a hey, nothing serious. But I didn't. Not yet. Not because I didn't want to, but because, for once, I was good right where I was, alone, but not lonely. Content. Healing isn't always falling into someone new. Sometimes, it's finally standing firm in yourself. And that night, I slept like I hadn't in years. It was a Saturday when I saw her again. Rachel. Same quiet cookout circle. Same understated energy. This time, she was wearing a ball cap and laughing at some dad joke someone told way too confidently. She caught me looking, smiled, then turned back to her conversation. Didn't rush over. Didn't make a big thing of it. Honestly, that's what I liked about her most. She didn't need to fill the space. Matt nudged me. "You gonna go say hey?" "I might," I said, sipping my soda. He grinned. "You're allowed to have a life again, you know." "I'm aware. Just checking. You've been the picture of brooding bachelorhood lately." He wasn't wrong. I'd been cautious. Guarded. Not out of fear. Really, more like reverence. Like love was this ancient cathedral I'd once helped build, only to watch it burn down. And now I was standing in the ashes, wondering if I should even bother laying new bricks. But something about Rachel. She didn't make me feel like I had to build a cathedral again. Just maybe plant a garden. We talked later that afternoon. Easy conversation. No pressure. She asked about the dog. I asked about her job. We joked about how we both still hate pineapple on pizza and agree that folding laundry is the most emotionally draining chore in existence. At one point she looked at me and said, "You look better." "Better than what?" I asked. "Than the guy I met a while back. You had that ghost walking through his own life look." I smiled. "It's the therapy and running. Mostly the running." We laughed. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and said, "I'm glad you're finding your way." Still stumbling. "But yeah," I said. "Little more direction every day." She gave me a look, not pity, not flotation. Just real. "I'd like to hear more about it sometime," she said. I'd like that too. A few nights later, we met for coffee. Not dinner. Not drinks. Just a simple corner cafe where the music wasn't too loud and the lighting wasn't trying too hard. We sat for 2 hours. Talked about everything from favorite books to why she stopped dating after her last relationship ended 2 years ago. No one really felt right, she said. Most people just wanted to be distracted from themselves. I wasn't interested in being someone's exit ramp. I nodded. Yeah, been there. I used to think love was about being needed. Turns out, that's exhausting. She tilted her head. And now I think it's about being known. And still wanted. She smiled. Not a big one. Just enough. I'd like to know you better, she said. And man, that sentence. It wasn't fireworks. It was a match in the dark. Small. Warm. Real. We took things slow. Not out of fear. Out of respect for each other's bruises. We had boundaries, but we also had laughter. Shared playlists. Sunday morning coffee walks. Texts about what shows to binge and what dreams we kept having. One night she asked, "Do you ever miss her?" Emily. I thought about it. I don't miss her, I said. I miss the version of myself I thought I was with her. The guy who believed love could fix anything. But I don't want him back. He ignored too many red flags just to keep the story going. She nodded. I get that. I reached across the table. What about you? I don't miss him, she said. I miss the way it felt to trust someone without second-guessing myself. But now I know better, and I'm learning to trust anyway. Look, this isn't a fairy tale. There were awkward moments. Hesitations. Nights where we both needed space and weren't sure how to ask for it without sounding like we were pulling away. But there was honesty. And effort. And laughter that didn't feel forced. And that was enough. One afternoon, I found myself back on my porch. Dog snoring at my feet. Cold beer sweating in my hand. Rachel's jacket draped over the chair she always claimed when she came by. I looked at it, smiled to myself, and realized something. The man who sat there months ago, broken, betrayed, bracing for impact, was gone. In his place was a man who'd stopped trying to be who he used to be, and started loving the guy he was becoming. They say forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. Took me a long time to understand that. I used to think forgiveness meant forgetting. Like if I forgave Emily or Adam, it meant pretending none of it ever happened. Like all the lies, all the pain, all the nights staring at the ceiling wondering what I did wrong, just vanished. But no, forgiveness doesn't wipe the slate clean. It just says, I'm not going to keep bleeding from the same cut. And I meant what I told Emily that day outside the grocery store. I forgave her. Not for her sake. For mine. Some time had passed. I stopped keeping count. That's how I knew I was really healing. The days stopped being anniversaries of pain. Rachel and I weren't rushing into anything. No pressure. No labels. Just two people figuring things out in a world that hadn't always been kind to them. And that was enough. She brought over a plant one weekend. Said my place needed something green that wasn't expired spinach. I named it Steve. Steve the succulent. Never thought I'd be a plant guy. But here we are. I started volunteering on weekends, mentoring young guys who were going through divorces, breakups, loss. Nothing official, just a group that met at a local rec center and drank terrible coffee out of paper cups. One guy asked me, "How do you keep from losing it?" I smiled. I didn't, I said. Not all the way. But I didn't let the broken pieces stay scattered. I picked them up, one at a time. Some I threw out. Some I kept. Some I repurposed. He nodded. Quiet. I could tell he was holding something heavy. So I added, you don't have to rebuild everything. Just enough to stand again. One morning, I woke up before my alarm. The dog was curled at the end of the bed. Sunlight was crawling through the blinds. Rachel was still asleep beside me, her breathing steady, arm draped loosely across my chest. And there it was. Peace. Not the dramatic, I conquered life kind. Just a stillness. A quiet in my bones. I thought about the man I was a year ago, confused, betrayed, spiraling. A man so desperate to hold on to what he thought was love that he ignored what it was doing to him. And I thought about the man I was now. Wiser. Weathered. Whole, not because nothing broke, but because I learned how to live with the cracks. There's a Japanese art called kintsugi, where they repair broken pottery with gold, not to hide the break, but to highlight it. To say, this mattered. This broke. And it was made beautiful again. That's me. That's Jake. Not perfect. Not pristine. But worth something more because of it. So here's what I'll leave you with. If you're ever in the middle of the storm, betrayed, blindsided, broken, just remember. Silence isn't surrender. Kindness isn't weakness. And walking away doesn't mean you lost. It means you chose peace over chaos. You can forgive without forgetting. You can heal without hating. You can let go without needing to understand why they did what they did. And most of all, you can rebuild. Not the life you had, but the one you deserve.